If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of 3. Join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth and postnatal recovery, helping you have a wonderful pregnancy and afterbirth experience. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Well, hi there. Welcome to episode 20, and today we are going to again dive into returning to running after childbirth. I am your host, Kath Bequee. I'm a mum of 3 young girls, a physiotherapist for women with 15 years experience, and I have an online community, Fitness Mama, which helps to provide pregnant and new mothers with the exercises, support, and resources they need to move from the overwhelm, the physical aches and pains of pregnancy, the weakness felt after birth, and instead we replace that with the comfort and confidence they need to get their bodies and minds strong again, so that they can get back to doing what they love with a bubba by their side, whether or not that's running around with the kids at the park or running the next marathon. So ladies, I know that this is one of the questions I get asked the most as a physio for women. When can I return to running? And I totally get why this is a goal for so many new mums. It can help with identity. It can help with headspace and having some me time. It can help you to maintain or lose weight. It can help you to feel normal. And you might just love running. It's practical, it's easy, it doesn't cost any money, and it's quick and efficient too. So these are all valid reasons why you might want to get back to running at some stage after having a baby. So today I am going to help you achieve these goals, but I do want to chat about 4 key aspects which I believe every woman needs to tick off in the process of returning to running. And I really do believe that each of these 4 elements are equally important when it comes to returning to running successfully. So before I do jump into this episode, I just want to let you know about the upcoming Fitness Return to Running program. It's super exciting. It's happening on February the 8th of March is kickoff day. And in this 12-week running program, you'll be able to participate in a specific returning to running exercise program, which will include physio-created, graduated 12-week running plan. You'll have access to a pelvic floor checklist, a pelvic floor stress test, which I encourage all postnatal women to do prior to returning to running. And there'll be screening tests for strength and stability. And these will really help to give you the confidence in knowing if you're ready to embark on this journey. You'll also gain Q&As and support with myself all about the topic of returning to running to answer any of your questions along the way. To sign up for this 12-week Return to Running Challenge, head to fitnessmama.com/running. Once more, that's www.fitnessmama.com/running. The link is in the show notes. Right, let's get into today's episode. So, 4 key elements that are super important when it comes to returning to running. So if you're thinking this is on the horizon for you, listen up, because I really do believe that if one of these key elements is lacking, that is when I'm more likely to see women in the clinic for a face-to-face appointment, when they perhaps have issues with pain or pelvic health concerns, or perhaps they're finding they're just not succeeding at returning to running. It's a big topic, so let's start with the biggest and most commonly asked question that I get. When should I start running? So there's no simple answer for this, and I don't generally like to give a time frame, because rather I like to go by a few principles, and I like to make sure a few steps have been put into place first. So I'll talk you through that. But if I did have to put a number on it, I would say no earlier than 12 weeks. And I think the longer I'm a physio for women, the more conservative I seem to become. Because for some women, starting running right on 12 weeks or perhaps before, it might be a breeze, might have no long-term issues, and you might get back into it super easily. But for other women, by getting back into running too early, their bodies might not be ready for it, and they might set themselves up for issues with leaking, prolapse, or perhaps aches and pains. So I often talk about this. Let's think about the footy field. If you have an AFL player or some professional football player, wherever you are in the world, if they had an injury, let's say they needed surgery, they would generally have their surgery, then they would have a period of rest, then they would start a period of rehab. And in that process of rehab, they'd start with some general strength exercises, and then they might start to train with their other members. And then once they've been training, that's when they might start a quarter of a match or half a match before finally getting into playing a full match on the field. So do you get what I mean? Whereas I feel after childbirth, at 2 weeks postnatal, our partner might have finished off their carer's leave and they're back at work. And at 2 weeks after giving birth, you might be at the supermarket with a toddler on one hip pushing the trolley with the other hand. So I just feel as a general society, we don't rehab after childbirth well. And that's when I tend to see women in the clinic face to face is once there's already issues. And it's a big driver why I created Fitness Mama, because I wanted to get in there early with all the education, the knowledge and the support and the resources to help women achieve what they want to achieve successfully without having those issues along the way. Or if they did have issues, being able to nip them in the bud and getting them seen to sooner rather than later. What I mean there is I really do feel if you want to get back into running, that's amazing. But we need to make sure there's adequate rehab prior and that we've set ourselves up. So the answer to the question, when can I get back into running? Technically, maybe textbook material, 12 weeks. But my answer would be, well, it depends. So let's go back to the start. The 4 key elements I'd like you all to consider before you get back into running is, well, first of all, before returning to running, do make sure you have a doctor's clearance or whoever your healthcare professional is. They will make sure that all the medical side of things is going well, like the uterus is healed, or the scars or any wounds have healed and that side of things. And they'll make sure your baby's going well and check for blood loss. So that's really important. So never skip over your doctor's clearance. And that's another thing I always say to my mums in the membership, before you come back to exercise class, do just get the tick of approval by your doctor. Okay, the second key element for all women to consider before getting back into running is, what's their pelvic health like? In the ideal world, I would love it if every single woman could have a pelvic floor assessment after having a baby, whether or not that's vaginal or even a cesarean delivery. But I know in the ideal world that is not necessarily possible or feasible or practical. And I'll make sure there's a pelvic health checklist available in the show notes. And again, this is something you'll also get if you sign up to my 12-week running program. But do this simple pelvic health checklist, because if you answer yes to any of these questions, I'd highly recommend you have a pelvic floor assessment. So this pelvic health checklist asks questions like, have you got any issues with leaking, rushing to the toilet, urgency? It asks about any prolapse symptoms. Do you have any vaginal bulge or heaviness and that side of things? So have a think, what's your pelvic health like? Because you could be the strongest woman in the world and you could have the strongest pelvic floor muscles in the world, but if you've had a vaginal delivery, everything has still stretched, and it's not just muscles, there's also ligaments and fascia and connective tissue, all those soft tissues that also stretch. And that's what I feel is really important for those first 12 weeks, is recovery of all those soft tissues to help with that natural recovery as much as possible. Think about it as an elastic band that has been stretched. We want that natural recoil to occur as much as possible. But if we get back into something too soon, we might keep putting that on stretch, and then it doesn't have that natural recovery as much. So have a think, what's your pelvic health like? If you want to get back into running sooner rather than later, do you need to go and have a pelvic floor assessment? do you need to get yourself onto a pelvic floor muscle training program? And I would argue every woman needs some sort of pelvic floor exercise program. So that is the next thing to consider. Are you doing pelvic floor exercises? Are you doing them correctly? Are you using strength elements, endurance, quick lifts, all those different aspects of pelvic floor muscle training? And again, if you're interested, this is something we do cover inside our Returning to Running program. After every single workout, I take you through a set of pelvic floor muscle exercises. So you've got your doctor's clearance, you've ticked off your pelvic health and you haven't got any issues with incontinence or prolapse. Perhaps you've had a pelvic floor assessment and you've got some exercises to do. The next thing that is good to do in the lead up to returning to running is starting your strength and rehab program. So it's not just about pelvic floor and core. We want to be working all the muscle groups, all the major muscle groups of the body. What are those muscle groups that you need for running? So let's get those glutes firing. Let's get all those major leg muscles working in combination with your pelvic floor and core. So a general whole body strength program and a rehab program to gradually get you strong again after childbirth. Because trust me, I felt as weak as a kitten after giving birth. And it wasn't just my pelvic floor and core. Your whole body has just been through 9 months of pregnancy and your whole body needs to recover and rehabilitate. This is something I walk all my clients through, gradual step-by-step strengthening. So we want to start off with some more gentle double leg work, and then you might progress that to single leg work, and then you might progress that to some more plyometric, so whether or not that's bounding or hopping, all those different aspects in the lead up to running. So that number, what I've just talked about, it's a huge topic and I could do a whole episode on this alone. But if you're not sure how to go about a strength and rehab program, either get in contact with whoever you have close to you that you trust. So it might be a physio that lives close to you, or it might be a personal trainer at a gym that you trust and has worked a lot in this rehab side of things, or an exercise physiologist, or come and join us for the 12-week Return to Running program if you want to be able to do something from the convenience of your home, which I know with a newborn is super convenient. So whatever works for you and your lifestyle, whether or not it's a home program or a program at the gym or however it is, I would hope that every single woman has access to something that they can do rather than just getting straight out into running. And then the last point is a graduated running program. So often I see women who, let's say 6 months after giving birth, they're feeling good, their body's feeling good, and they think, yeah, I've got 20 minutes, I'm going to go out for a 20-minute run. This is great, I've had a good night's sleep, I'm ready. But they go from doing nothing straight into a 20-minute run. And so this is where I really do encourage you to have a really step-by-step walk-run program. So don't just go into a full 20 minutes straight. You might mix that up with walk, run, 1 minute on, 1 minute off, that sort of things, and gradually increase it over a long period of time. And again, I'm conservative here. I don't increase a program any quicker than every 2 weeks. So I make sure you've been doing something consistently for 2 weeks and there's no issues with aches or pains and you're tolerating it well. And that's what I'm doing with my Return to Running program. For 2 weeks, you do the same program consistently, and then I bump up one element for another 2 weeks. You do that consistently, 4 days a week, or whatever works for you and your lifestyle. Make sure it's feeling good, there's no issues, and then you bump it up. Even, I might have some people not agreeing with me on this, but I even think if you Googled the Couch to 5K Return to Running program, like I think it's a 6-week or 12-week Couch to 5Ks, I think that's really, it's a very steep running program in terms of it graduates quickly, and there's a lot of variability, obviously. I think there's some that are better than others because Google's a big place out there. But I'm conservative. As a physio, I tend to see the issues that arise when people go into it too quickly, too much too soon. I always recommend people to go slower than they think, because it sets you up for success. Even if it's slower, if you get into it slowly but successfully, you'll have that long-term success. If you go in too much too soon, then you're more likely to have issues. Then you stop running, and then it's really hard to get back into it, and there's a bit of a yo-yo effect happening. So I have mentioned 4 elements. 1, always get your doctor's clearance. 2, do concentrate on your pelvic health. Don't ignore that. So that includes pelvic floor, but also your deep abdominals as well. I talk about pelvic health, but we also want to include core in here. So whether or not you have a core exercise program in combination with your strength and rehab program that focuses on your core, which focuses on your abdominal muscles and your pelvic floor. So that's a graduated rehab program. So you go from your general strength work right through to your bounds and your leaps or your hops, your plyometric work, to really get that body ready. Getting your pelvic stability while you're doing specific exercises like single leg work that's mimicking running, all those sorts of things. So then the 4th point is the graduated running program. So walk, run, but again, not going into it too much too soon, and step by step, only increasing one element at a time. So ladies, if what I've just talked you through sounds a bit overwhelming or a bit confusing and you still don't know where to go, I do implore you to go and get help. It is a big area, and I do encourage you to go and seek help. So again, whether or not you go to your trusted health professional that you've been working with, or if you prefer an online program that you can do in the convenience of your home, come and check us out at fitnessmama.com/running. That's it in a nutshell. Hopefully that's given you a bit of food for thought of things. Perhaps you're only 10 weeks postnatal, 12 weeks postnatal, and you're thinking, okay, look, over the next few months I'm going to get to it. Perhaps you could start to incorporate some things into your program now to just make sure you're ticking off all the different elements that you need. So make sure you're including your pelvic floor and core. Make sure you're including your strength, your return to running, graduated to high impact exercises. So if there's any questions at all, shoot me a DM on Instagram. So it's at fitnessmama. I would love to answer any of your questions, and I will be answering questions definitely along the course of the next week. So shoot me any specific questions, or if you want me to explain any of those topics in a bit more detail, let me know too. So before I sign off, do remember that my team and I will be putting together the show notes for this episode with all the links at fitnessmama.com/podcast. So this will include details about how to access the 12-week Return to Running program. Have a fabulous day, everyone, and I look forward to you joining me next week for another episode of the Fitness Mama podcast. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Mama podcast, brought to you by the Fitness Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at Fitness Mama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer: materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I'll see you soon.